Welcome.
Hi.
Welcome to day 3 of our international gathering. Today we will hear from the associates of the Emily Gamlin province. Just a few reminders. Please remember when we break for rest or for lunch to leave your computer on and to leave it on mute. When we come back from the breakout groups, remember to select your language again. And I want to thank ahead of time Guy Richard for assisting us with all the technology, and for Sylvia for helping us with all of the materials and supports, and all of the staff in Montreal for the work that they have done to assist us to be able to attend this gathering. Please continue to use the chat room for questions or comments or messages to each other. And there are people monitoring the chat in 3 languages. So now I'd like to welcome Renee, if you'd like to begin. And so either Renee or Sister Lucille, are you ready? I saw them both. There we go.
So I think that René may have a problem. So let me start with the morning prayer. Provident God, light of the world, help us to recognize a reflection of your splendor on each human face. So I'm stuck, says Sister Lucille. I don't know if René would continue or.
Tu peux cliquer pour continuer. Cliquez sur le.
So you may simply click to go on. Okay. There. The mysterious face of the child growing within her mother's womb, the face of the young person looking for signs of hope, the face of the old person thinking of her memories, the face that was undone by suffering, illness, and nearing death. Raise in us, O Lord, the will and the joy to promote, to protect, to defend human life always in our families, in our country, and around the world. Send your Holy Spirit so that, dedicated to the service of the immense treasure of life, we can share in the eternal communion of your love. Amen.
Je ne sais pas si René peut prendre sa présentation.
So, can René now start his presentation?
Alors, vous avez ici la
So, here you have the quiet revolution. In the province of Quebec, there was a baby boom after the Second World War.
Après la Seconde Guerre mondiale, de sorte qu'elle suscite des changements profonds
So that deep changes were introduced in the management of social and economic issues, a department of education and a department of health and social services were created. In the 1960s, as the Quebec society had a large number of school children, the government had to introduce important reforms in the areas of education and health and social services. For education, with the creation of a Department of Education, education becomes a public service, a government service. In this way, the church is losing its influence and its power in education. For health, the government is also taking control of the health institutions in Quebec. The government builds several hospitals so that all citizens can reserve quality health services all across the province, whichever his or her origin, his or her culture, his or her religion. The welfare state, in French, is the providence state. In 1962, the government passes a law on hospitals. It demands that the hospitals be directed by physicians and not by sisters anymore. At the same time, the government is also taking charge of the orphanages and the elderly refuges that were previously controlled by the religious congregations. So what we call the quiet revolution is that the government is making all the public institutions neutral, such as the hospitals and the schools. This separation between the government or the state and the church is progressing during the whole quiet revolution. For some time, the church remained present in educational institutions because there are members of clergy who are members of the Superior Council of Education and are part to the decision making. There are still a few private schools also that can be religious, but the public school network is completely neutral. The Quebec Charter of Rights and Liberties was adopted in 1975, and it has a socio-economic dimension which makes it unique. It supports the protection of the child and recognizes the equality of spouses and recognizes the duty to help anybody who's in danger. But there are a few prohibitions. There is a prohibition of any gender-based, religion-based discrimination or any discrimination towards expecting women or people living with disability. Since then, time has evolved, but the problems have remained. Women have started to work outside of their home. For a daycare system was developed to free the women. There is a growing gap between generations so that the older people are now placed in the long-term care centers. The hospitals are taking care of the ill people, while the schools, colleges, and universities have democratized to provide education to all of their clients. But the gap between generations has expanded over the years. Several left the state take care of everyone. So the state had to become a welfare state, but with the years, it has grown into a state that is empty of compassion and proximity. The work done by the sisters to bind generations together and help them help one another evolved into uncompassionate healthcare. But fortunately, the sisters, before leaving, had trained lay people who were able to continue the charism of our foundress, Mother Emily Gamlin. They are the associates who, like all of us, have put the compassion of Emily into our interventions. The associates are proudly carrying the Providence flame in their various environments. It may be in the daycare centers, in the schools, the colleges, the universities, and in all the community organizations and the homes for the elderly. They carry the Providence flame for each of the generations and are binding them with one another so that the grandparents can pass on their values to their grandchildren. This time of pandemic is a privileged time to allow the various generations to interact and to develop new bonds with one another. During, for instance, at Christmas time, certain were able to allow young children, as I did. Well, it's René is saying that. So allowed their grandchildren to write letters and send Christmas cards to older people who were abandoned in the elderly homes. Others helped families not to be deeply troubled by complex situations. Some took care of women in difficulty to help them accomplish their duties as mothers with dignity. While the mother is cooking, a few associates are helping the children with their homeworks and allow the children to take some rest. Others are getting involved in organizations to help people with mental health trouble. They help them become self reliant, develop their talents, and help them have a positive influence in their respective environments. In our associates groups, you find people who are ready to help the street people to recover their dignity. Is there anything more beautiful than to see one of those people to find again their families, to forgive one another and reconnect with their children? I myself, Renee, as a province associate, I'm the secretary of an organization that's providing 2,000 hot meals per school day to pupils who otherwise wouldn't have enough to eat. We all know that a hungry child finds it difficult to focus and to be successful in his or her studies. I know several of them who are now catechism teachers and who are helping grandparents to accompany their grandchildren in their faith journey. As you can all notice, the associates are quite involved in the community and are proudly carrying the Providence flame in this intergenerational world, which otherwise could be deprived of love and compassion. In order to grow Emily's charism, we also created a renewal book that helps the other generations to develop Emily's charism by helping them understand Emily's compassion and tender love, two key elements to carry the Providence flame to an intergenerational world. So this had been designed and realized by René Lefebvre. Thank you. So now I don't know if René can take over at this point because I don't have the Song of Generations. It's
Ok.
so the song that's called Degeneration is a popular song in Quebec that talks about the relationships between various generations and explains the evolution of Quebec over the last 100 years, more or less. As there is no sound, I will read. Then your grandfather paid for the land. And then your father, he sold the land to become a normal public servant. And then you, Sunny, you're not more knowledgeable. You would like to become a landowner.
Je comprends pas, il l'a envoyé à Guy aussi. Ton arrière-grand-mère.
Your great grandmother had had just as many children. But then for your grandmother, three were plenty.
Quand tu fais des conneries,
But
tu t'en sauves en avortant.
when you do crazy things, you get around by
Mais
aborting.
le matin, tu te
But
réveilles.
there are mornings when you wake up in tears.
Ton arrière-grand-père a vécu
Your
la
great great
misère.
grandfather went through deep misery.
Il a ramassé ses scènes.
He had to spare every single
Il est
penny.
devenu millionnaire.
And then
Il a
he grew
gagné
into a millionaire. He invested everything into his RSP, his savings plan.
Et puis toi, petite jeunesse,
And then you,
tu dois
as
tout
young
au
teen,
ministère.
you owe all you could have to the
Je
government.
vais faire le lien entre le ministère et les générations. Tu lis des
And
livres
you read
sur
books that
la
talk about
simplicité volontaire.
voluntary simplicity. Your great great grandparents
Père savait
knew how to organize a party. Then your grandparents,
ont formé
they were the Yaya generation. But then you, my friend, what are you doing with your evenings?
était donc arrivé
Turn off your
avec les
TV
cabanés.
and don't stay within your home.
Enfile tes
Get out,
car nous allons
put on your nicest clothes because this evening we're going to dance all together.
son affaire est basse.
So to summarize this song, the grandparents had a very difficult life. They went through difficult times. They were able to make some money. But then the grandparents were the 60s and 70s generation. They took it easy. And then the younger generations find it difficult to build an existence. And so in a way, this is a song about the gaps between the generations.
Alors, nous allons passer à la partie
We will move on to the Emily part, Emily, bearer of the Providence flame in an intergenerational world.
première partie, la
First
flamme
part,
de l'Émilie dans
Emily's
ce monde
flame in an intergenerational world.
No, lo quiero ir igual un ratito porque
L'intergénérationnel, qu'est-ce
What
que c'est?
is
Le concept
intergenerationality? The
intergénérationnel
concept
ajoute une
intergenerational adds
dimension
a
dynamique aux
dynamic
relations.
dimension
Il
to
permet de
relationships
lier
that
entre elles
can
différentes générations.
create
D'où
bridges
l'importance
between different
d'établir des
generations,
liens
and which is
vivants.
why it is important to
C'est
establish
aussi se rappeler que
living
les groupes qui
connections. It
participent,
is also to
par exemple
remember that the
les
groups who
personnes
participate,
aînées
for
et celles plus
example,
jeunes,
elderly and
offrent
younger
la
people,
meilleure
as
option
Renee mentioned
pour
earlier,
partager des faits
those
valorisants
people can share values that
de
contribute to the actualization of the human being, regardless of their age.
partager la
To
mémoire
share
de la
memory
Providence.
of the Providence
C'est
family
révélateur des liens
reveals
intergénérationnels.
intergenerational connections.
Un regard sur une page de
Let's look at
l'histoire
a page of
où Émilie a
history
vécu la
where
petite
Emily grew
et
up
planté le cep de sa
and
ligne Providence.
planted her Providence vine.
Émilie a toujours
Emily
manifesté de la
always
compassion
expressed
pour tous les déséquilibrés
compassion for
et
the
pour
marginalized and the poor,
leurs territoires.
no matter, regardless of their generations.
Le 6 octobre
October
1841,
6, 1841,
ainsi les dames de charité
were founded
qui sont les
Ladies of
premières
Charity.
associées
They were the first people associated to her works.
Monseigneur Bourget bénit la nouvelle association.
Monseigneur Bourget blessed the new association.
Émilie, dont
Emily
la tendresse de mère n'est pas éteinte,
was a tender,
prend
just
soin
like her mother,
des
and
orphelins.
she took care of the orphans.
Elle accueille les femmes âgées
She
et
welcomed elderly women, sick women.
Émilie a pris soin de Dodé,
Emily took care of Dode,
avant
the first abandoned child.
Émilie Gamelin
Émilie
organise
Gamelin
un
organized a shelter for
enfants atteints de typhus.
150
Celle-ci
orphans
se situait
because of
dans
typhus
la
fever
maison de Madame Nolan.
in the house of Madame Nolan, l'Hospice Saint-Jérôme-Émilien,
Elle fut
Saint-Jérôme-Émilien
aussi à
Hospice.
l'origine du
She also
service
created
médical et
the
l'organisation
fille de
d'action
service,
de protection des
girls of
jeunes filles
service, a placement
éloignées
agent to
au
protect
centre
young
social
girls
domestique
coming from rural areas to the city to work
afin
as
d'éviter
domestic
que les jeunes
workers.
filles de
Monseigneur
petite
Bourget
pauvreté
had even
aillent
said that
d'abord
the young girls had to go
avant
to
de
the House
s'inscrire
of
à
Providence
l'orphelinat.
before
Elle
starting to
est
work as a
polie.
domestic worker because he wanted to protect them.
Émilie sait établir une
Emily
connexion
knows how to
entre les
establish
pères emprisonnés
relationships
en
between
amenant les
the
enfants
imprisoned
les voir
fathers and
comparaître
their children
et
by bringing
catéchiser
the children to the
les
prison to
enfants
visit
avant de jouer
their
fort à la
fathers.
prison, le pied du courant
That placed her
en
at risk
1839.
of repercussions. This is an image of
Émilie
a
ouvre
prison in
plusieurs
1839.
maisons
Emily
sans
opened
doute
many
pour
shelters
les
for
orphelins.
the elderly, for sick priests.
Fondation de l'Institution
She
des jeunes
founded the
Montréal,
institution for the deaf
hôpital
and
Saint-Jean-de-Dieu
mute,
pour malades
Saint Jean
mentaux.
de Dieu Hospital for mentally ill people.
C'est en
In
1843
1843, Émilie Tavernier
qu'Émilie est
Gamelin
nommée fondation
founded the community of the Sisters of
Sœurs de la
Providence
Charité.
that was then named as the
Émilie est
Daughters of
servitrice de
Charity,
pauvreté.
serving the poor.
Émilie prend le 18
Émilie
octobre
became a sister
1843
October 8,
la tête
1843,
des
and the
religieuses de
following
la
day she
communauté.
was elected
Fonctionnaire
superior for the community,
jusqu'à
a
sa
role
mort
that she
le
occupied
3
until her
septembre
death,
1843.
September 23rd, 1843.
En effet, au 19e
At
siècle,
during the
durant la
19th
première moitié
century
du
and during the
20e,
first half of the
les
20th
activités
century,
des
the
Sœurs
works
de
of
Charité
their
sont
institutes were
nombreuses et variées.
numerous and varied.
Émilie Tavernier-Gamelin
Émilie Tavernier-Gamien showed a great love, great compassion for all generations, for all classes of society, and for all the miseries of the period of time. Thank you, Émilie, for bearing the flame of providence. Second part, the works of the Sisters of Providence. Works of Providence, fruits of the vine. With the Quiet Revolution, the government took charge of the different needs of the population, and the authorities of the congregation decided to invest in the commitments of each sisters and to promote compassion towards people in need. The sisters worked with the people with VIH AIDS. The sisters welcome patients or caregivers referred by the Sacré-Cœur Hospital. Those people would come from rural regions and would have no shelter, nowhere to go. So the Sacré-Cœur Hospital and Hostel is right beside the Mother House in the Salaberry residence. The sisters were present alongside the people mentally ill. Accueil Émilie. They did pastoral work. They also worked with Providence Associates in community organizations. They worked with deaf people at Maison Odette. The sisters with the Providence Associates founded community organizations to help those in need. So what you see here is the mutual aid service in Laurentide. With the associates, they visited prisoners, giving them support, understanding, compassion, and prayer. In homes for the elderly, they provided the presence of Providence and met pastoral needs. In collaboration with the Providence Associates, the sisters created mutual aid houses to help poor families. The sisters, together with the Providence Associates and the organization Presence Compassion, are serving a sandwich and a coffee, serve sandwiches and coffees to homeless people each Thursday. This is Émilie Gamelin Square and Émilie Gamelin statue that you can find at the Berry-UQAM Square. The sisters opened daycare centers in poor neighborhoods to help poor families and single mothers. The thrift store Quartier Émilie provides housing and furniture to the poor. The Corbeille, the food bank, helps the poor. The house for families supports parents in difficulty. These are all works that were created by the sisters and then entrusted to lay organizations. With the sisters, together with the Providence Associates, immigrants and lonely people find a Providence on their journey. Providence welcomed them, the sisters welcome them and show compassion towards them. The sisters deepen their roots beyond the North American continent, all the way to Argentina and Chile, and open houses and missions in Philippines, in Haiti, in Cameroon, and El Salvador. The works of Émilie, of Mother Bernarda, and Mother Joseph is not finished yet. It is ongoing in compassion and charity in an intergenerational world in many ways, through the World Wide Web, Facebook, Messenger. What happened? Something happened here.
Continue, sœur Lucille.
Continue, Sister Lucille. I don't have my text anymore. I'm going to continue. It won't be long. I'm just trying to find my document again. I don't know what happened.
Bon. Je vais rendu ici. Ici. Alors,
Facebook, Messenger, different websites for different provinces, the newsletters from the Providence Associates. Today, the sisters and the Providence Associates still work with the poor. They work with the suffering. They work in the image of their founder, Émilie Gamelin. They are women of charity and compassion. This PowerPoint was prepared by Sister Lucille Vadnet, Nadia, Providence Associate, and René Lefebvre. And that's it.
J'en écris à lui.
I don't know what's happening. I have someone else's screen.
Guy está tratando de ayudar a René a...
He is trying to help René fix his connection problem. That's what's happening. Okay. I was done with that.
Si tu as fini, tu peux fermer,
If
Lucille.
you're done, you can stop the screen sharing. I can't do it. We're going to help you. We're going to do it for you here. Try to do it yourself because I can't do it. It's not working.
Bon.
So I'm going to continue. Is my microphone still open, Hortense? Yes, your microphone is open and we can hear you well. Perfect. I'm going to continue with the Ministry of the Providence Associates. Okay, go ahead. Bearers of the Providence Flame. So you see here that each province is represented by grapes because Emily is the vine.
Tu me partages ton écran? Parce que là, présentement, il n'y a rien sur ton écran.
Oh, there's nothing on your screen. Are you sharing your screen? We're seeing you, but we're not seeing your PowerPoint. No, I want you to see the PowerPoint.
Je vais retourner. Bon, allez ici. Tu me diras, Hortense.
Oui, oui, ça va maintenant. On voit.
On voit? Bon.
Oui.
So each province is represented by a bunch of grapes.
Je ne sais pas si.
I don't know.
Bon, ça va être correct. Alors, vous voyez ici le
As you
monde.
can see, the intergenerational world is representing each province by a bunch of grapes because Emily's vine is the symbol. So you have Bernarda Moraine province, Emilie Gamelin, Mother Joseph, and Holy Angels. I'm going to try to broaden my screen. I don't know how to do it. Providence Associates and Intergenerational Ministers. So we noticed earlier that the commitment of Emily was truly alive in an intergenerational world. We're going to see now how the Providence Associates also work at the intergenerational level. Providence Associates are called to be the human face of Providence. And just like Emilie, Mother Bernarda, and Mother Joseph, they follow this mission of charity and compassion towards all generations and all the miseries of our time. You can see here Emilie Gamelin province. Uh, those people are associates who took part of the 175th anniversary with the sisters in Montreal. The same here at Emilie Gamelin Square. Everyone came to serve soup and a sandwich. So it was a wonderful, wonderful anniversary. Here, Compassion, Présence, Compassion, Compassionate Presence, the organization that I spoke of earlier with the Providence Associates and the sisters working together. On the left, we can see Sister Gloria Kellogg, who is holding Emily's statue's hand. So that was the inauguration of the Emilie Gamelin Square. You also have Father Pops, who is a wonderful priest and man. He has a huge heart. He works with the homeless. Here are the associates working in pastoral and parish pastoral in Emilie Gamelin province. Sister Emma Gros, who was a very important person at the time. And here you have the sisters and the associates preparing a king's table in Spokane, Washington, in the Mother Joseph province. This is the associates and the sisters from Edmonton, Alberta, together celebrating the 175th anniversary. This is Madame Patricia Nex from the Providence, the Associates of the Holy Angels Province, carrying the offerings during the 175th anniversary ceremony in Montreal. We have newcomers to Chile in Bernarda Morin Province, and as you can see, there are different ages. Mentally ill people accueille Émilie in Montreal, Émilie Gamelin Province. What we see here is the Émilie Carrefour in Lanoret. The associates and the sisters work together on a great sale to raise funds for the poor. This work was created for the poor, and it started with the sisters and the associates, and they used an old garage. It was transformed in a great two-floor store. It operates with volunteers, and everyone really contributed their gifts to it. In 1997, the second phase of the project was established. They built a kitchen in the bigger part of the store for a weekly food security services. And in 1999, the third phase, they opened a furniture counter in the garage. Here you can see the associates and the sisters from Carrefour Émilie, Sister Colombe Gobey and Sister Lise Gravel. We have associates working with poor families. The same thing, associates in Lanoret working with the poor families during the holidays. What we see here is associates visiting sick people in Saint-André-Avelin. For children, associates work at Respite Providence. It is a daycare for poor families. This is mutual aid service in Saint-Lin, Laurentians. Providence Associates and the sisters work together. This was a great moment for the Sisters of Providence and for the Associates because in Saint-Lin, the church was finally named the parish of Blessed Emilie Gamelin. This was a great victory for the sisters and for the Providence Associates who worked very hard on this project. Cameroon, Providence Associates, they are intergenerational, and the sisters are preparing visits to the poor. with Sister Marie-Rose Saint-Amand, who passed away, unfortunately. This is particular. Nadia will tell you about this later. In 2012, the associates from Montreal and from Cameroon united their forces to build, to maintain a chicken coop in the country. It is called the Providence Chicken Coop. Supported by the Sisters of Providence, this work of the Providence Associates is today commercial success, and the benefits uh, allow the associates to offer chicken, eggs, and produce to underprivileged people. Providence Associates are participating in intergenerational encounters in Cameroon, Africa, with Sister Marie Rose. The same thing is happening here. The associates, Sister Mary Rose and Sister Rosario, are celebrating Émilie Gamelin. What we see here are Providence Associates and Sisters. You can see that this is a very intergenerational group that's in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. They're very active in Haiti. What we see here are sisters celebrating the 175th anniversary in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. Intergenerational Providence Associates and Sister Natalie in Haiti and Torbec. And you can see once again that Saint Véronique group associates are very intergenerational. We have many different generations here. Same group in Haiti and Torbec. This is Port-au-Prince. The associates are intergenerational as well. What we see here are associates who are intergenerational, and they are renewing their commitment in the Mother House Chapel in Montreal. Same thing here. Providence Associates, many generations depicted in this picture, different ages and different cultures. Same thing here. They are really from different cultures and different generations. Once again, the same thing. Associates, different ages in the Mother House Chapel. They were probably renewing their commitments as well. Our brand new associates in Egypt, in Alexandria. I think that there are 7 or 8 of them. Oh, there are 8 of them. So the Providence Associates in Egypt are brand new. What you see here are Providence Associates, different generations, and together with the sisters from Émilie Gamelin province. But this is special. In Haiti, Chewi is an associates gathering with Sisters of Providence and other people. And their aim is to create a bakery in the Saint Véronique de Welsh Torbec parish in Haiti. Once established, the profits from this work will be completely transferred to the works of the associates in the region. Inspired by the positive experience in Cameroon that I mentioned earlier with the chicken coop, the Providence Associates from Montreal and Haiti have founded the Haiti Chewi project in October 2015. The fundraising started with selling breads, um, baked goods, and other fundraising activities have been organized during the 2016. Of course, this year and last year, not many activities were held because of the pandemic. The most important activity was the great bazaar and show open to all in May 2016 in the Providence Room of the Mother House in Montreal. So this is a bazaar for the Torbeck work with associates and sisters collaborating in fundraising for this project led with the Torbeck Associates. What you see here is intergenerational participation. So Miss Sarah Luce is playing violin. She is participating in the bazaar for Haiti with the sisters and the associates. This is once again the bazaar for Haiti in collaboration with the associates. Sister Hélène Payen, Sister Hélène Coutu. What you see here is a meeting of associates and sisters in Chile in the Bernarda Marin province. La Chute, the La Chute city. The associates are renewing their commitment. This is the King's Table in Santiago in Chile, in the Bernarda Marin province, and associates in Caleta Olivia in Argentina, Bernarda Marin province still. It is very interesting to see how the associates are truly encultured. They have many commitments in all the different countries where we find Sisters of Providence. So what we see here are sisters in Comorodo, Rivadavia in Argentina. So Sisters and Providence Associates from Bernarda Marin province. We have the Providence Associates Susan. You saw her yesterday, I think. I think she's with Sister Marianne here. Very interesting to see that this Providence Associate is caring for her family in Philippines. Intercongregational encounters and gatherings with the Providence Associates and Sisters from the Mother Joseph Province. They are participating in a meeting for women of Providence in collaboration. Commitment of Providence Associates, Emily Gamlin Province. The store, the sharing store with the Providence Associates, so working with the underprivileged, the poor, people going through a rough financial time. Friends and intergenerational associates, they are intercultural as well. El Salvador, Providence Associates, George and Rita. The annual meeting of the leadership of Providence Associates movement, Mother Joseph Province. This is in Philippines, Mother Joseph Province. The associates are meeting with imprisoned women. As you can see, the associates stay true to Emily's charism because Emily herself visited imprisoned women, and she would bring the children visit their fathers in jail. Monthly meeting of the Providence Associates in Chile, Valparaiso, Bernarda Marin Province. Providence Associates from Mother Joseph Province, together with the Dominican sisters in Tacoma. They are marching for migrant justice in the United States. Providence Associates from the Holy Angels Province. The meeting of Providence Associates in Yakima, United States in 2018. New member, new associate in Mother Joseph Province, 2018. This is a planning meeting For the associates in Lioleo in Chile, Bernardo Morin Province,
Alors, vous avez ici la rencontre provinciale
provincial gathering
en 2018.
in 2018, Bernardo Morin Province.
Alors, du fruit de ses mains, elle a planté une vigne.
With the fruit of her hand, she planted a vine. So you have seen how the associates are really journeying in the footsteps of Blessed Emily, Mother Joseph, and Mother Bernard. And let us be aware that God is always ahead of us and is preparing the way. God is attentive to our questions, our questioning, and our commitment. And God is inviting us to build links and bonds between generations. It is a major challenge that Providence is calling all of us to. So each one of us has to find how we can join together all generations in the footsteps of Emily. Emily was not afraid to get involved, and she went on the way to follow her God, a provident God, and Our Lady of Sorrows, the Lady of Sorrows, who taught her compassion for her suffering son, who embraced all the sufferings of our world. Amen.
Merci, Lucille.
Thank you, Lucille.
Si vous pouvez fermer votre écran. Et si vous voulez, on peut prendre la pause.
And if you wish, we will now take a 15-minute break, and then we will take more time for the various testimonials. Okay, so we'll take a 15-minute break right now.
Je vais dire qu'on peut prendre la pause, dites-le.
So again, let us take the break right away. So we'll be able to take a rest. It's 10, it's 15, a 15-minute break, 15-minute break.
Welcome back.
Hello.
Sister Hortense is going to introduce the last song of this morning's presentation, and then we will move on to hear testimonies from associates from the Mother Emily Gamlin province.
Guy, vas-y.
So this is a song that was summarized to you earlier. So I'll let you hear it. If I translate, you won't hear it. So it's called Degeneration, of course, with the idea that the younger generations are not competent.
La terre, ton arrière-grand-père, il a labouré la terre, et puis ton grand-père a rentabilisé la terre, et puis ton père, il l'a vendu pour devenir fonctionnaire. Et puis toi, mon petit gars, tu sais plus ce que tu vas faire dans ton petit 3,5, ben trop cher, fret en hiver. Il te vient des envies de devenir propriétaire et tu rêves la nuit d'avoir ton petit lopin de terre. Ton arrière-arrière-grand-mère, elle a eu 14 enfants. Ton arrière-grand-mère en a eu quasiment autant. Et puis ta grand-mère en a eu 3, c'était suffisant. Puis ta mère en voulait pas, toi t'étais un accident. Et puis toi, ma petite fille, tu changes de partenaire tout le temps. Quand tu fais des conneries, tu t'en sauves en avortant. Mais y a des matins entouré d'enfants. Ton arrière-arrière-grand-père a vécu la grosse misère. Ton arrière-grand-père, il ramassait les scènes noires. Et puis ton grand-père, miracle, est devenu millionnaire. Ton père en a hérité, il l'a tout mis dans ses REER. Et puis toi, petite jeunesse, tu dois ton cul au ministère. Pas moyen d'avoir un prêt dans une institution bancaire pour calmer tes envies de hold-up et la caissière. Tu lis des livres qui parlent de simplicité volontaire. Tes arrière-arrière-grands-parents, ils savaient comment fêter. Tes arrière-grands-parents, ça swingait fort dans les veillées. Puis tes grands-parents ont connu l'époque yéyé. Tes parents, c'était les discos, c'est là qu'ils se sont rencontrés. Et puis toi, mon ami, qu'est-ce que tu fais de ta soirée? Éteins donc ta TV, faut pas rester encabané. Heureusement que dans vie, certaines choses refusent de changer. Enfile tes plus beaux habits, car nous allons ce soir danser.
Next on our agenda, we have some information from associates who are working in intergenerational programs. First, I would like to introduce Nick Estrada, who is with the University of Providence in Great Falls, Montana, United States. Nick can explain to you his position at the university and his work with the youth at the university. And then following Nick, we'll hear from Nadia Bertolucci from Montreal. Nick, are you available?
I am here.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Let me just get my screen going here. Let's see if there we go. Kathy, are you able to see my screen all right? Perfect. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Nicholas Estrada, and I'm coming to you live from the campus of the University of Providence, actually from the former dining room of the Sisters Convent over here at the university property. Here at the university, I am an instructor. I teach classes on Providence spirituality and charism, as well as teaching history of the Sisters of Providence. For those of you unfamiliar, the Sisters of Providence in many ways are the history of the state of Montana, particularly in education. And on top of that, I also serve as the lay campus minister for the university for both our undergrad and graduate schools, as well as serving as mission officer, which means that I tend to the spiritual formation of faculty, administration, etc. here at the university. A little bit about me. I was born and raised in the Los Angeles area of California. I was myself educated by the Sisters of Providence of the Mother Joseph Province. I have a picture there, actually. I had to go digging for it, of my high school graduation from Providence High School with my then principal, Sister Lucille Dean of the Mother Joseph Province. From there, I studied theology and history. First at the University of San Diego, a Catholic school in California, and then I pursued my graduate studies with the Society of Jesus at Loyola University, Chicago, in the state of Illinois. I began my work in youth ministry and religious education for youth under the Dominican friars in a village of Illinois called River Forest until 2013, when I was invited to return to my alma mater, where I served for 5 years at Providence High School in California as a religion teacher, as well as campus minister. In 2018, I had an invitation to consider what we would call a little bit of missionary work, and I visited our school ministry in Montana for the first time. Fell in love with the mission up here and the opportunity to really get my hands dirty, if you will, serving uh, a very poor population, if you will. And I became director for campus ministry and an instructor at the University of Providence here in Great Falls. For those of you unfamiliar, Montana is the northernmost state in the American Rocky Mountains. You can see us there. We are immediately south of Alberta. By area, we are the fourth largest state in the United States, but we only have 1 million people living in the entire state of Montana. It is a very rural area. Of the state's population, 23 do identify as having been baptized Catholic. But I think it's important to note that even among our Catholics living in rural Montana, many, maybe if they are lucky, are able to go to a church community and see a full church maybe once a year. There are parts of Montana where you have a village or a town of maybe 20 people, the farther east you go in particular. 47% of the state would identify as Protestant. And I think what's so interesting for the United States is that over 20% of the state of Montana would actually identify as having no religion at all. Usually because they grew up in environments where there maybe has never been a pastor or religious education program. There are still towns that have never had a church, especially when you head east into the state. The Sisters of Providence first came to Montana in 1864, crossing the Rocky Mountains from the west on horseback. They were the first women of European descent to ever do so in United States history. A little bit about where I serve, because many might be unfamiliar with the ministry here. The Sisters of Providence first came to this town, Great Falls, Montana, in 1892, where they founded a hospital to serve the Catholic community here, though it was always opened to all populations. They then founded their first school, which was a training center for nurses in 1894. It was actually the first school to train nurses in the region, now state of Montana. In 1932, the Sisters of Providence joined other Catholic institutions in establishing a diocesan-run college, which was actually functioning out of the campus of a Sisters of Providence hospital. That early school was called the College of Great Falls. In 1942, the Sisters of Providence of the then St. Ignatius province received full sponsorship of the school. So the institution was no longer a diocesan institution, but was officially completely owned and operated by the founding order, the Sisters of Providence. And from there, the sisters eventually decided that the campus needed its own school. It was sharing a property with a hospital. So in 1960, we moved to our current location. And in 2018, after many years of talking about it but never doing it, we finally decided to actually have a name for the college that really reflected that Providence heritage in education, and we were renamed the University of Providence. Today, the university is comprised of 2 schools continuing the educational heritage of the Sisters of Providence here in Montana. We have a School of Liberal Arts and Sciences and a School of Health Professions focused on training health professionals, our largest program being nurses. We offer 63 academic programs and concentrations spanning from business, theology, and philosophy all the way to healthcare administration. We are a small school by the big city standards. We are 1,005 students, but our 1,005 students represent 30 states in the United States of America and 9 countries from predominantly Europe, Africa, and South America. As I talk about my experience with working with the youth, I just kind of want to acknowledge a few realities. There are a lot of factors influencing working with young people today, especially in the United States. I would say first and foremost, we have to talk about attention spans. You know, in the classroom or in church, Many argue, actually, there was a book that recently argued this by a man named Medina, that the attention span of a young adult in the same activity is no longer than 10 minutes. So thinking about having to try to change things up every 10 minutes can be difficult when trying to keep the attention of young people, or actually any person at all. The reality is an adult's span is about 10 minutes very often. The younger they get, the smaller the time span is. The other issue that we often face with young people in the United States is that question of sacred versus secular. We have some who ask if religion is still relevant. We have others who focus on service, sometimes forgetting that service can also have a very deeply spiritual role in our lives. And a growing reality, especially in parts of the United States where there is a large evangelical tradition, why can't worship be entertaining? Some people look at the Catholic Mass and wonder why it can't be rock music. And in some places it can be, but that's not always available everywhere. Of course, in the United States, young people looking at spirituality and ideas of getting involved with ministry are heavily confused, especially right now, with the changing socio-political climate of America. Religion sometimes feels heavily politicized, and it's so hard to try to guide young people through that. And then, of course, what I think are the biggest factors. Young people so often feel that they are not understood at all. This is not a question of misunderstanding. It's the question of being not understood at all, whether it be by religion, society, professors, or even adults. For many of us who grew up going to Catholic schools, I was taught by the Sisters of Providence. We had an experience of faith-seeking understanding. We grew up in households that had faith, and we were sent to Catholic schools where the sisters and lay teachers helped to build that further. Today, there's a growing change and transition in American Christianity, where it's no longer a faith that's already developed seeking further understanding in school. It is young people seeking understanding at all, which might somehow lead them to faith. It's an inverted model now, where we have an increasingly large number of students who have not been influenced or have never encountered faith or religion at all. Here in Montana, I can't tell you how often I have students who come from the east of our own state, which is the most rural part of the state, who have never been into a church of any kind in their life. And I think through all of that, we have the continuing reality that young people desire community. Of course, the big question is, what kind of community are we really seeking? Here at the University of Providence, campus ministry, since I've arrived here, has really taken on many different forms. First and foremost, of course, is the liturgy. The Eucharistic life of the University of Providence is essential to who we are. And that has included, of course, an open approach to allowing students who are curious about Catholicism to learn more about the faith, but also being mindful that we serve a population that is not predominantly Catholic. And in that tradition of the Sisters of Providence, being authentically Catholic for us so often means being always inclusive. Of course, during the age of COVID, the university has also had to take on the idea of worship and offering Mass online through YouTube, and that's been a very interesting process for us. When students are on campus, a big part of trying to build community for our young people has really been the idea of retreat, of taking our students through Montana to really experience God in nature and God in one another. We're very blessed here in Montana. We have a very beautiful state. We have mountains to the west and south of us, the beautiful plains to the east of us, Canada just to the north. And yes, if you look at the photos, for those of you who know me, the kids did get me onto one of those rafts. And yes, we did go whitewater rafting in one of our national parks. That was a very interesting retreat, to say the least. But of course, there's other factors that come into campus ministry for us, including service. We have our students serving in many different aspects of our extended community within our county or province here within the state of Montana, working from the Catholic food pantries to the St. Vincent de Paul Society. but also working here on campus. You see a photo there of one of our students. I think it's the most Montana photo for those of you who don't know our culture. This is cowboy country. We have a student there who is working on building the new cross for Good Friday for veneration of the Holy Cross. We have faculty down in that center lower picture working on putting together Emily Gamlin medallions. It is a tradition for us that whenever a student enters the university in September, they receive their first medallion of Mother Gamlin. And it is a tradition that we continue on even when we were closed during COVID. We had an online service to bless them and then mailed them out. But there's many other factors that make us a Providence institution, and where me as a Providence associate was really able to contribute to this community further. For example, leading Providence mission and charism education for employees, reinstituting or rather strengthening devotion to our Mother of Sorrows. Also, I was, as an instructor, able to develop a class which is now required for all first-year students at the University of Providence, where they are introduced to Emily Gamlin and our Providence heritage. We also offer opportunities for students who are really curious about our Providence spirituality to take a semester-long course that I teach on our Providence heritage, history, spirituality, focused on charism. And then, of course, the big thing when you're trying to build a community is making Emily Gamlin and the stories of the sisters a relevant and daily present part of life on campus. From our cafeteria, our dining hall being named Table of the King Dining Hall, to weekly emails sharing the stories or highlights of the sisters and also current ministries of Providence. Or even sharing very often with our faculty the reflections of the gospel that come from Montreal. Those are how we continue to build this greater community. I would say, though, my greatest joy since coming to the University of Providence has been really what I would call a giant experiment in seeing how we can try to better reach young people with the charism and mission of Providence, of Mother Gamlin. And that has come to fruition for us this semester in a group that we call the Providence Servant Leaders. Providence Servant Leaders took many years to develop. I first had the idea of some sort of youth formation, service-based group, actually when I first became an associate in about 2014. And it just took some time to really develop in my mind before I was able to create something as my own personal way of living out my own vocation as a Providence associate. Providence Servant Leaders is a faith formation community that we have just launched, rooted in forming young people for service to the community and to others through the heritage and charism of the Sisters of Providence. Their mission: inspired by the charism of the Sisters of Providence, we respond to God's call to be Providence for the world through fellowship, formation, or rather community, and loving service. First and foremost, this new program is a community of student leaders. The Providence Servant Leaders program is a community of students enrolled at the university with a shared interest in personal growth and service to others. As a result of the need to have time to grow as a community, the Providence Servant Leaders program isn't just a semester-long thing, it's a multi-year commitment for students usually in their first or second year of university who are interested in growing and developing spiritually and in leadership roles over multiple years, usually 2 to 3 years. A big focus is growing spiritually in authentic formation. The program is open to students of all faiths. However, there is, of course, the need to be open, one, to the understanding of God as providence, and two, to the models of saints, like our Mother of Sorrows, St. Vincent de Paul, and of course, Blessed Emily Gamlin. Providence Servant Leaders seeks to form young people in the charism of Providence and helping them understand that the charism and spirituality of Providence is not something that is stagnant and dead. It's very alive. And it's not just for the sisters themselves. By being part of a Providence educational ministry, it is our heritage, not just their heritage. And so we seek to really develop formation in this, leadership development to help them grow in skills, but also to really develop community in small groups where they're able to share about faith, about service, about doubt, but also about the great joys of growing in leadership. And in doing so, we strive to build student experiences. After an intensive year of spiritual formation in a small group faith sharing community, we officially name our candidates Providence Servant Leaders. And for the remainder of their time in the program, they serve as peer ministers, particularly in campus ministry, leading service projects, mission trips, supporting us in worship, in the Eucharist, supporting in different community building fellowship opportunities, Bible study, etc., but also in leading retreats for other students. Very often, the best way to build community is to have peers, people close in age to them who have the interest in really growing in that ministry. And finally, I would say what the biggest part is of this program is creating young people who want to join us in a Providence-centered, Christ-centered work towards social justice, in continuing that saving work of Jesus, in fostering a desire in young people to want to go and build a more just society. And I won't go through all of this, of course, but a little bit of an overview. We cover a lot of different topics in this formation, from who am I? What do I want in my life? To the question of, well, who is Jesus? Who is my neighbor? Even to topics of the question of my call. Why suffering? Why is suffering a thing? But also conflict resolution, diversity and inclusion, helping to build communities that are focused on inclusion, focused on celebrating diversity. But of course, at the foundation of all of this is learning from our Providence story. We speak about Mother Gamlin, of course, but we also speak about Mother Joseph and Mother Bernarda. We also look at sisters from Montana history here in the Providence community. All focused on helping the students realize that the Providence charism can be part of their own spiritual journey as well. For those of you who might be curious in learning more about any of the work we're doing here at the university, hearing more about my work as an associate trying to really inspire the next generation to really ask about Providence Associates through programs like this, please feel free to contact me. My email is on the screen. I am able to respond in Spanish very easily. I do speak Spanish. But also, if you are writing to me from our French-speaking communities, just give me a day. I'll figure it out in about a day or two. But it's not as quick for me as Spanish is. But I enjoy the opportunity to freshen up my French. I haven't studied it since I was at Loyola. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Nick. We got we received quite a few comments during Nick's presentation of people who are grateful for understanding his work at the University of Providence and those who would like to continue communicating with Nick. Nick has written a proposal that he's been working on for more than a year of how to encourage and guide the students to become Providence Associates. And we've been reviewing that, and he'll present it eventually to the leadership team of the Mother Joseph Province to talk about how can we encourage our youth to become Providence Associates. And I think he's setting the best example that all of us globally could follow to try to encourage more young people to join the life of a Providence Associate. Next, we have a presentation from Nadia about her experiences and work in the Cameroon. Nadia, are you ready?
Oui, je suis prête. Je crois que oui, que je peux commencer. Si
Yes,
vous
I'm ready. I think I can start if you agree.
Alors, je vais utiliser
I'm going to use a PowerPoint today. Very simple. I chose to speak in a spontaneous fashion today because this theme is very close to my heart. So I'm just want to rectify something. I've never been to Cameroon, even though it would be my greatest wish. What I do is that I work with the institutes in Cameroon from Montreal with the different activities so that they can be more autonomous. So I just wanted to clarify this. I was asked to speak in the name of Cameroon. So I chose to speak instead in my own name, but in connection with the experience I've lived with the associates by corresponding with them, by meeting with them, and many different ways to communicate that we've had. So I'm going to very simply launch my PowerPoint. Just wait a few minutes for me.
Est-ce que c'est correct? Vous le voyez?
Can you see? No, we cannot see it, unfortunately. Not yet.
Attendez, je vais sortir 2 secondes.
Tu n'as pas partagé ton écran, Nadia. Tu dois partager ton écran pour qu'on puisse le voir.
You have to share your screen, Nadia.
Je crois que je l'ai fait peut-être.
Yeah, I just tried. Let me try again.
Sur le bouton vert en bas.
Oui, c'est ça. 2 secondes, je vous prie.
Just please give me a second.
Ici, et je partage ici.
Going to share my screen.
Est-ce que ça marche?
Is it working? Yes, it's working.
Parfait. Merci beaucoup de votre patience.
Thank you very much for your patience. I'm going to talk about Cameroon and what I call a land of mission and hope. As Providence Associate, I got to know the work that was being done by the sisters. I've had the opportunity to share with the missionary sisters, and it was a great pleasure for me to talk with them about life in Cameroon. And since I've started working with the Providence Sisters in 1991, I've been interested in Cameroon. So I have quite a few years of life and experience with the Sisters of Providence. So very humbly, I will share with you a few pictures. Some of them were already presented by Sister Lucille, and we're going to try to embark on a small journey together. What I might have forgotten to say is that maybe Sister Jeanne d'Arc can complete afterwards. I think she's here with us today. So what you see here is a picture, and all the people that you see with the yellow scarf are Providence Associates in Cameroon. I had a long, continuous correspondence with two of them, Florentine. I have a lot of affection for her, and Mr. Ici Joseph, another associate, and you will soon understand what we did together. So on this picture was taken in 2012. But before that, I would like to tell you about the fact that the Émilie-Gamelin province, of which I'm part of as an associate, has three great mission countries. The first one is Cameroon. The three are Cameroon, Egypt, and Haiti. Those three countries right now have groups of Providence Associates. And we are very proud and very happy to have them. And this is all thanks to our sisters who are in mission there. You'll understand that in Montreal, we are always looking to have connections with different people. So I'll continue now. This picture was taken in 2011 when Sister Annette Noël, who was the provincial secretary at the time, went on an official visit to Cameroon. You'll see at the left of the father, you can see the father in green. So on his left, Sister Jeanne d'Arc Dubé, who might tell us a few words after, and on his right, Sister Annette Noël. At the right of Sister Annette Noël, Sister Mary Emeline, who was a novice at the time and who is now a temporary professed sister. Right on her side is Sister Marguerite, and after that is our much loved Sister Jeanne d'Arc Dubé, who passed away. Marie-Rose Saint-Amand, I'm sorry. That's a mistake. I was confused. I will continue now. This is to give you an idea of where Cameroon is. So that is where our dear Hortense is from. She is at the general leadership team. You all know her. You see that Cameroon is at the heart of Africa. And just so you understand, the group of associates we now have two groups of associates, but the first group we had was created very close to the missionary sisters who were in the little Kudambeng village. It's not near the coast. It's many kilometers away from the capital. And it's important to understand that most of the people who are part of this group nowadays are farmers, very simple people, but they have a deep faith and a great love for Emily. They are, as much as possible, very, how could I say, they stay very true, very faithful in their prayer, in their pilgrimages, and in different expressions of their faith. It's a way to be present in their villages and in the neighboring villages. What you see here is the group. Sister Marie-Rose Saint-Armand, once again, is there with them. We see Florentine, my great friend, who is kneeling with flowers. It's a woman that I have a lot of respect and admiration for, because on top of being in charge of the group, she is also a catechist, a mother, grandmother, farmer. Farmer, she works in agriculture. And she is a person who's very close to the people who are in need. She's very open-minded. I met her here in 1996 during the first International Associates gathering. Many of you were there. And it's the first time she took a plane. It's the first time she had a passport, and I really fell in love with that woman. Such a simple, yet brave, hardworking woman. She listens to the others. She's very calm. She has a lot of faith in Émilie Gamelin, and in her faith and she has a lot of faith in the Providence Associates movement. She was really full of awe with all the little things she saw in Montreal. I'm going to tell you a short anecdote. She was very surprised to see that adults here ate sugar, desserts every day. And she said that for her, it was only children who would have desserts every day. So that was quite a surprise for her. So all those little details I learned with her. And it also makes me think of the theme that was used yesterday, intercultural. So present when we are in contact with such a person with such a big heart. Sister Jeanne d'Arc Dubé at the center, Mr. Ici Joseph on the right. This is the main ministries that the Providence Associates have in Cameroon. The first one is pilgrimage. So pilgrimage that happens on Emily's Day. So it can be for her birthday in February or for Emily's anniversary in October. They're very close to prayer. What we see here are associates and sisters of Providence visiting the people that they consider very poor. They always say poorer than ourselves. It's an expression that we often hear when we have the chance to speak with them or when we write them. That's very interesting. The people that you see, the person that you see in the center is a grandmother who is caring for her grandson, who is at her right, and she is surrounded by Sisters of Providence who were at the time novices and who became temporary professed sisters. Sister Marois, Sister Maria, who was before in Cameroon. And so that's in Haiti now. We can also see Sister Marie-Émilie at the middle. And I'd like to call your attention on the fact that this grandmother who is caring for her grandchild is blind, and her grandchild is also blind. So they live together in this very humble house, and they are impatiently waiting for the visit of Sisters of Providence and associates who come to give them very simple things that are essential for them. So soap, oil, wood, because everything there works with wood. To cook, for example, to stay warm, people need wood. So it's really a very beautiful story, and they have at least 20-25 people that they visit like this every week. Every month, I'm sorry, depending on distance where people are, because associates all live very far apart from one another. So they often have to walk 2 to 6 kilometers on foot to meet and to gather. So there are people that I admire a lot. This is the beginning of our common project that was already mentioned by Sister Lucille. That was the building of the Providence chicken coop. When when the former director of the province visited associates in Cameroon, I asked her to ask them how associates from Montreal could help associates in Cameroon. I had thought that it might be possible to build a bakery, because I know they had no bakery in their village. But what a surprise was how surprised I was when Sister Annette came back and told me that they didn't eat bread. So why would they need a bakery? They don't eat bread. That's why we completely changed our mind. And they said that they would prefer to have a chicken coop. since chicken meat is considered a delicacy for them. They don't often eat chicken, but it wasn't for their own benefit. It was to give to the poor people. So we started organizing a great bazaar here in Montreal to fundraise, to send money to Cameroon, and we did that over internet with the missionary sisters to whom we owe a great deal because they've been helping us with communication with Cameroon. So here you see the associates who themselves built the chicken coop with their own hands using wood, using what they needed, the wood that was all around them and all the resources that they could find to make the most of the little money we could send them. So they really made the most of everything and they realized their dream. You'll see it very soon. So this is our dear Florentine with their first little chicks, who at the time, I think they started with 100 chickens, and the chicks grew. You see them on the other picture. The chicken are pretty big already. They're nice and fat, and on the right you can see that they are being prepared for King's Table, especially for the poorest people in the community, thanks to the Providence Chicken Coop. So it is a great story of intergenerational collaboration, international collaboration, intercultural and interdependence collaboration. So I very humbly think that it's exactly what happened. What we see here is a second group. Seeing the success of this activity, a second group was created in another village nearby, very near Kudambeng. I don't know the name of that village. Unfortunately, I didn't receive that information. But what you see here is the intergenerational dimension of this group, because young people were interested in the project. Those that had a bit more experience are the people with the yellow scarves. It's the scarf that distinguishes them, the scarf that we used for the beatification of Emily in 2020 in Rome. So those people, the older people, are mentors for the younger people. So they are first friends of Providence and then become associates of Providence. Time went by. A lot of communications happened, but there came a time, unfortunately, in 2016, where the Imni province decided, for different reasons, to shut down the mission in Cameroon. So Sister Annette Noel, supported by her council, that's what they did. And the direction of the Providence mission was transferred to the Providence Associates. So just as Caledonia in Argentina, I think that they're with us today. They live the same thing, not in Bolson, in different places in Argentina. And at a certain time, the sisters left for different reasons. And now the flame, the Providence flame, is held by associates. And it's the same thing that's happening right now in Cameroon. So I very humbly want to tell you that I would like us to be much closer to Cameroon and their associates, because I think that their role is very important there. But with the new technologies, excuse me, we can have some hope, and also with the end of the pandemic, it's the same thing. So what you see here is that they are gifting a small statue that was sculpted by one of the associate members. They are giving it as a show of friendship to Annette Noël and to encourage her and to say that the mission will be kept. I'm going quickly just so that you understand how the bazaars work, and I'd like to add some information. We have an annual bazaar, and we've held it until 2019, 2020, and 2020. We will not be able to hold the bazaar, of course, because of the pandemic. But as you can see how things work. Associates, Sisters of Providence, to whom we owe a great deal, make this bazaar a great success. It is held in the Providence room of the Mother House. It is lent to us by the Émilie Gamelin Foundation, and I wish to thank the sisters and the associates because on my own I would never be able to organize a bazaar. It's a teamwork, really. And we started organizing this bazaar for Cameroon, and I show you who we worked with. Thanks to a great bazaar, we've also had the project in Salvador. Even if it was a Mother Joseph project, we still gathered funds to send them to the people that you see at the bottom of the screen. So they are farmers, people that had lost everything during a great tropical storm. They had lost all their crops. They were completely overwhelmed by this great difficulty. So we try to encourage little projects such as this one with the bazaar. And only 1 year later, they did not need us anymore because with their work, with the fruit of their work, they could be completely independent economically. So it was just a sporadic help, punctual help. So those are all the mothers from the villages that you can see that they are farmers. So we don't only organize bazaars in our groups, so we also have here the Eucharistic celebration in Montreal for Émilie Gamelin School in Torbec in Haiti. When the school was opened, they still lacked in a bit of money to buy the essential products, material gear for students, and we had the idea with the very precious help of Sister Hortense, who's with us today, and we received the support of the province and of the council of the Émilie Gamelin province. We were able to organize this with the support as well of the International Roncalli Foundation, who worked with us as well. So we could fill the Notre-Dame des Anges church very near the mother house. I'm sorry to be talking about the money. I try not to do it usually, but I'm so proud of what we achieved with the precious help of those people who helped us. We gathered more than $17,000 that went into the Émilie Gamelin province. So with that, we could buy different goods. No, excuse me, many necessary items for the school children in Torbec. Very quickly, I'll show you the last slide. The mission continues. We've mainly worked for Torbec in the last bazaar, excuse me, in the south of Haiti, where we have the sincere and profound intention to open a store where Providence Associates will be in charge of the store. We first were thinking about a bakery, but it's probably going to change a bit because of the changes in the village of Torbec. But we keep doing our good work. This is the property that we could buy already. It's not exactly like this because there was a Matthew hurricane that tore all the trees, but with the goodwill, I think that we'll be able to do something that's very interesting. The Torbeck Associates are very active, very close to the lay movement. And I just wanted to tell you that we organized the fundraising selling baked goods here in Montreal, but during COVID, we could not do it anymore with fundraisers. We also have a Christmas market and Easter market. We also sell T-shirts. I'm very proudly wearing one of them today with the Providence Associates logo. We also have knit and crochet work, but because of the pandemic and illnesses, sometimes that don't allow us to get out of the house much. Nothing stops us. So we really hold this work close to our hearts, and we will continue with saying that we all have different gifts, but we share the same spirit, different ways to act, but each of us has the gift to express the spirit for the well-being of all. So on this, I thank you for giving me the chance to share the wonderful work that is done by the Providence Associates and the Sisters of Providence hand in hand in Émilie-Gamelin province and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Nadia. That was very interesting. Were you also going to speak about Haiti, Nadia?
Oui, je demanderai à Nathalie.
Yes, I would ask Sister Natalie if she wants to introduce the people who will talk about their experiences as Providence Associates. Thank you. Lucille, in Haiti, we have an associate from Torbec and another one, Valencia, who will speak. They're ready. They're ready to speak. They can start. They can start, no problem. Hello to everyone, each and every one of you. An associate will talk about Providence Associates in Torbec. Her name is Roseberine Bonali. I will ask Roseberine to start with her testimonies. Hello, I don't know if you can hear me well. We hear you, but we don't see you. I'm here. Yeah, we can see you and hear you. So greetings everyone in the name of the Providence Associates in Haiti, specifically those of Torbec. I am happy to be here in this international gathering. It is great to see different associates, Sisters of Providence, and I thank you for all your presentations. They were very enriching. It was great to hear your experiences. As you probably know, Haiti is currently in a very chaotic situation. We have many problems in terms of security. No one is spared, the religious, the priests. So it's just to let you know that the situation is very difficult right now in Haiti because we hope to be able to count on your prayers, your continued prayers for our countries that still needs peace and security above all. I'm going to share with you my experiences as a Providence associate. I prepared a PowerPoint presentation and I will try to tell you in a few words and to share with you my personal experience.
I don't know if you're following me. Yes, it's going well. Yes. Our group of associates was went from 11 to 20, and now we are 43. We have 10 members between 25 and 35 years of age. We have 15 people between 35 and 45, 15 between 45 and 55, and 3 people who are older than 55.
Oui, oui, ça va. C'est parce qu'il parlait à quelqu'un d'autre. Excuse-moi.
So you may continue. That's as I was saying. So there are 43 of us with different age groups. I'm part myself of the smaller group and younger group, and I'm proud of it. If we want to talk about the intergenerational dimension, I've joined the associates very young. Before that, I had a journey to become a sister of Providence. And then when I went to college in the Department of Agronomy, I discovered that I could serve the Lord better in marriage, but I've always remained in contact with the Sisters of Providence, and I've become an associate afterward. We did not start with all the age groups at the same time. We started with a few younger people and a few older people first. In our community, there were tensions and even intergenerational conflicts because there were groups of children, groups of young people, and groups of adults, but there was no cohesion and no synergy between the various age groups. And in our parish, so we looked at the situation. Why do we have different structures? We all need one another. And we had the idea of building a large group where everybody would be included, adults, youth, and children. That's how we got started. So we shared experiences. Early on, it was not that easy. So, well, people would criticize the young people very often, but with the help of sisters of Providence and of other counselors, we are now beginning to develop a deep fraternity with one another.
Donc, les adultes ainsi que les moins jeunes commencent par
The
intégrer le
adults
groupe
and
des
the
adultes,
elderly
plus de jeunes commencent par intégrer le groupe des appels et c'est
had their own meetings to start with. Then we would like to show you a picture of
vous allez voir comment maintenant on a
how now we are proceeding.
est-ce que vous voyez la photo, je sais pas.
Non, on voit pas.
We don't see the
Vous ne voyez
picture.
pas?
Non.
You don't? No.
Ok. Et là? Et là?
Oui, oui, on
Now, are you seeing it? Yes. Yes, we do.
Là, il y a une
So,
jeune, une très jeune, il y a
so you have here a very young person, an adult here, again, an older person.
on voit maintenant, alors, beaucoup plus de gens ont
As
intégré
you can see, there
les
are
adultes
many more
dans le
members, many more
Au
adults have
début,
joined our group.
c'était pas trop, alors, c'était pas facile au commencement,
In the
vraiment.
beginning, it was
Il y
not really
avait des
easy.
divergences d'esprit, il y
There
avait
were
d'autres
different
choses, mais
opinions,
au final, on est arrivé par nous entendre avec un
but
seul
finally,
objectif.
we come
Et
to an
vraiment, nous
agreement around a
avons
common objective.
travaillé ensemble sur pas mal de choses.
And we've been working on
On a
different
continué la
projects.
discussion. Alors, c'est vrai qu'en Haïti, on n'est pas économiquement parlant. Avec bon, le groupe des associés, on n'est pas au top. Mais
Of course,
on
in
envoie toujours l'aide
Haiti, at the economic level, we're not top, and we have received help from other associates. But with the little we have, we've been able to do quite a few positive things. For instance, we are organizing days for each first Sunday of the month. We invite adults to Mass, and it's for the elderly. It's like a tribute that we offer them. Of course, there is a lunch served afterwards, and small gifts are prepared for these older people. We also are celebrating the mothers. We have a Mother Day. We have something for the children at Christmas time, and we have this special day for the elderly, as I said at the beginning. And we are distributing sanitary kits, hygiene kits, and also we share food baskets as well.
Qu'est-ce qu'on a fait d'autre avec le terrain qui, alors on a entendu la sœur parler du terrain que
The
les associés de Cameroun qu'on a
so of course you heard the sister explain about what happened in Cameroon and the help that we received from them. So we have now a ground, a property on which we can cultivate, and we are growing bamboo because, and also a kind of peas that we are growing, and banana trees as well. And as a project now, for instance, we We
parce
have
que
a
vraiment
well
adapté. C'est vrai, on est au 21e siècle. On a
that
des
is
solutions.
safe because we
Donc,
have
dans ce projet-là, on a
processed
fait un
water.
projet, on
We
a fait
have
un projet
also
de boulangerie qui
a
est passé
project of a bakery
parce que
that
les
turned
gens
into something
utilisent
else
maintenant à la zone une boulangerie, quelque
because
chose
there is
qui
already now there is
produit
another
de pain.
bakery in the area.
Alors, on va laisser tomber la boulangerie
So
pour
we
passer à
will
quelque chose qu'on commence déjà à
move to
faire.
something else. We're thinking about something different
Et
for
cela
that
pourrait
area.
bien euh,
So it will probably be
une
around the well,
porcherie. Alors,
or
on
we
a
might
fait
have also
visiter, mais
a
on a fait projet. Et
hog,
qu'est-ce qu'on a fait
a
d'autre?
hog
On
raising
a,
project.
alors, avec Mathieu, l'ouragan Mathieu,
So
on
with
avait reçu
the
euh,
hurricane with Matthew,
des dons, on avait reçu une
we
participation de Roncalli pour
received
aider le
some support
projet.
from
Et
the Roncalli
on a
Foundation,
aidé certains agriculteurs
and we were able to help
on a
farmers.
donné des semences
We
des
gave
semences de
seeds
maïs.
for
Entre les
corn,
associés, on a
um,
distribué ça avec tout le monde
and not only for the
qui
associates, but
travaille.
also
On a
for
fait
other
un grand nombre
peasants.
de bénéficiaires
So we were able to help a larger number of people in need,
et ça a porté fruit, ça a contribué vraiment
and this really
à quelque chose.
contributed to improve their well-being.
Je pense que, bon, oui, c'était tout ça que j'avais à partager
I think
avec
that's
vous.
what I
Vraiment,
wanted to
c'était beaucoup de
share
choses
with
que
you.
j'avais à partager. Mais si je pourrais dire,
But
si je pourrais témoigner
I
de mes
could
expériences
also
personnellement
talk about my
en
personal
tant
experience
qu'associé,
as an associate.
alors je suis vraiment contente
I'm
et de
really
donner mon soutien
happy
parce que d'ailleurs je suis
to
partenaire
support this
d'agriculteur
movement. I'm
de collaborer
myself
avec toutes
an
ces
agronomist,
personnes
and so I'm
et
quite
qui sont
happy to be able to
intéressées.
help
Et
the people.
ce qui est plus intéressant, c'est donner c'est le désir de
What is
partager
especially
le
interesting
peu de ce qu'on
is
a,
the
parce qu'on n'a pas
desire to
forcément
share the little we
beaucoup
have.
d'argent, mais c'est parce que qu'on a ce désir, cette soif d'aider
And
les
this is
gens,
this
de
deep
les
thirst
aider là où
to
ils sont.
help
Alors,
people.
dans ce que j'ai, je vais partager, je vais donner. Alors,
This is really basic
on aura donné
for me.
7 têtes de mère,
And I was
un
to
hommage
forget
à quelques
for the
adultes
Mother's Day,
qui
we will
sont
pay
très
tribute to
contribués
a few
à ce
adult members
à ce qu'est
who
devenu notre paroisse,
contributed importantly to
à ce
what
qu'est
our
devenu
parish has grown
International-International.
into, what our community has become.
Alors, la paroisse de Torbec, c'est une paroisse
So
qui a
Torbeck
vraiment beaucoup de
is
vocations et surtout
a
ouverte.
parish where there are
Alors,
several vocations,
on a dit c'est peut-être à l'exemple de ces personnes-là qu'on a choisi euh,
and
de rendre hommage pour la fête des mères.
it's one of
C'est
the reasons
grâce
why
à
we
ces
decided to pay tribute to these
vocations qu'on a
adults,
ces vocations
because they have contributed to the several vocations that
et
are present in
enfants aussi,
the town of Torbeck.
des enfants aussi qui sont vraiment intéressés par des activités de
And
groupe.
it is noticeable to see how the young people are interested in the activities that are being organized. So we found it was important to pay tribute to these people we don't want to expect for them to die, to recognize all that they've been doing for us and for the community. So this is why we will organize a special day of tribute on the occasion of Mother's Day, which here is the last Sunday of August. Thank you on behalf of all the associates in Haiti, and especially the associates from Torbec, for all your support and your help. And we rely on your prayers for Haiti and for the associates and for our works, which are continuing the spirit and charism of Emily Gamelin. Thank you.
Merci, Rose.
Thank you,
Est-ce qu'il y a
Rose.
quelqu'un d'autre d'Haïti?
Is there anyone else from Haiti, Nathalie, who will now present a testimonial? Yes, indeed. Yes, Valencia is from Port-au-Prince. Good morning, all. For Port-au-Prince, there's Mr. Montclair, the associate, who will present his testimonial.
Bienvenue, Monsieur Leclerc.
Well, welcome, Mr. Montclair. Good morning. Good morning to all associates from everywhere, those who are with us for this beautiful encounter. I'm really happy to be with you. So we are okay. Now we're seeing you better. Yes. I'm Montclair. I'm very happy to be with you. I'm in Port-au-Prince, a Providence associate. And this is the first time this year that I can take part in this encounter. First of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be with you. And I want to tell you that I'm a scout. And as a young boy scout, I was said that you have to do your good action, your BA in French. But when I met the Sisters of Providence, it was not only about doing a good action, you have to do your good action with all your heart in the spirit of Emily Gamelin. After several sessions of work, I've come to understand that we really need to act with heart. Before I was working with the teenagers and the youth. For me, or for me, the older people were not that important. As I met the Sisters of Providence, I've come to understand something, a secret about the older people. You need to understand them. You need to help them. As I've been working with the Sisters of Providence, I've come to see life in a different way. My life has changed considerably. I now understand that I have to act differently with the older people. I'm working with a group of women. I was born in Pétionville. This is a municipality near Port-au-Prince, but I come from Jacmel. Jacot is one of the sections of Pétionville. And when you're there in the mountain in Pétionville, there's no public transit, for instance. So I said, I need to do something. I need to organize something. So as I'm a teacher myself, as I'm teaching science at school, it's after meeting the Sisters of Providence, I realized that it's not only the teenagers and the youth that I should be interested in. I should also be aware of the older people as well. So I organized small meetings to stimulate them, but whenever we have a monthly meeting with the Sister of Providence and the Providence Associates in Port-au-Prince, it is like a source that helps me, that I find both comforting and enlightening because it helps me to find a direction. And finally, I told myself I need to go to the elderly. And in the end, I've met an old lady, and this old lady has deeply impressed me. She has marked me. When I came to her place, she explained to me so many things about older people. I realized that I was really not in touch with reality. She's a 98-year-old woman, and she's living in her hut, in her shack. And when she sees me, she has a large smile and she tells me, "You're welcome." And I understand something else. Love is eternal. She told me, "You're coming to see me." Why are you coming to me? It's been years that I've been forgotten, that nobody ever comes to me. Her name is Aimable. Her name is Aimable, and I called her by her name. And she responded, "Dear, dear." And she was so happy. And she talked to me about her youth. When she was a young woman, she met so many people who told her, "I love you." And she took the time to tell me that it had been years and years, it had been years that she had met anyone who would have told her, "I love you." When I call her aimable, aimable, which means lovable, so I, I could see that she was crying. She told me, "Look at my arms, look at my legs. I mean, I'm so thin, I'm ready to die. But you're coming to see me to tell me a word that I hadn't heard for so long, the word love." But during my conversation with Aimable, this old lady, I had something, I felt something in my heart. It was like my heart was pierced. I come to understand in such a vivid way, but in an invisible fashion, a few things. And so I started to make her bed, to put her comfortable. And she was so glad. I can tell you, dear associates, it was not my way of doing things. Usually, with the teenagers and the young people, I'm not in the habit of to see these kinds of people. After this experience, I thought we need to do something. After this conversation with the lady, I had a reflection with the associates in Port-au-Prince to tell them, well, we need to do something. It's not enough to speak about it. We need to take action. As there is a fundamental need in that area, a problem of drinking water. Water is rare. It's rare commodity in that area. So with the other associates in Port-au-Prince, we are thinking about a project. When we went there, it was not easy to find water because they told us that since the earthquake in 2010, there is no more water. We're on a mountain. It's an altitude, so it's not easy to have a well. So the only solution was to build a tank. We asked an engineer to present an assessment and evaluation, and they told us for that community in Jaco, tank would be $10,000. It was impossible for the people in the mountain over there, and even for us in Port-au-Prince. But we said, well, we will pray at the providence, and everything is possible for the one who believes. And so we started to contribute to collect that amount to build the tank that will be serving the whole community. My brothers and sisters, associates, and dear sisters of Providence, misery in that area is huge. I could say it is special. People have to walk several miles to bring back a bucket of water. But as the lady told me, she told me, Doc, I'm going to die, but what makes me especially sad is the issue of water, and the other old people can't have water. Of course, they can't even take a bath. So they really need water. And so she asked me to do something. And what the most important thing we could do at this point would be to see how we could build this tank. And this tank is to collect the rain water during the rainy season. And then we'll find a way to be able to process the water so that it could be safe. Dear brothers and sisters, associates, dear sisters of Providence, Jaco, this area, which is about 5 kilometers from Pétionville, this is an area where I would like that one day the associates from Quebec, from Montreal, from Chile would come to Haiti and be able to see and visit. Shortly, we will start building the tank. But now we need 10,000 US dollars to build this tank. But with the little we have, we started already, and we already have $1,000. So that's a good beginning. And I take this opportunity, as you know, Haiti is a special country, a country in crisis. Asking for money is not easy, but we will continue to do our best. But we wanted to take this opportunity to ask all the associates around the world to find a way to think of this area of misery in Pétionville. So our major project during this year will be to see how we'll be able to build this tank for this local community. Living with the older people is not easy. The old people talk a lot. They often repeat themselves. That's a fact. But they're so important. And it's with the older people that we find wisdom.
Comme a dit proverbe. Mais l'amour est éternel. Je suis toujours content quand je suis avec un vieillard. Les personnes âgées comptent pour moi aujourd'hui beaucoup. C'est pour cela. Je suis très content aujourd'hui
That is why I'm very happy today to tell you that I feel that my mission is to work with the elderly. The associates in Port-au-Prince, each of us wanted to say a quick word, but it would be too long. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for your collaboration, your solidarity, for the words that you shared with us since Monday. We are here and we're very happy. Dear sisters, dear associates, please pray for Haiti because we are going through a very difficult period of our history. Today, we cannot remain silent, inactive. We must do something. Someone said, when things are difficult, that's when God comes into action. We want to act, but our great dream for this year is to see how we can build this great reservoir that will help the population. Thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you for your patience, hoping that you understood something. We ask you to pray for us because we are going through something very difficult. Pray for the sisters in Haiti, pray for the associates that are in Haiti. Thank you, Mr. Monclar, Mr. Paul Monclar. Thank you very much. Now we will hear testimony from Mr. Gérard Cordebras. We are listening, Gérard. Yes, can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you now. You can hear me? Dear sisters and associates, hello to everyone. My name is Gérard Cordoba and my wife Gisèle. We are Providence Associates since the beginning of the 2000s. In Émilie-Gamelin province, and our group is St. Joseph. My wife and I moved in 1993 in Little Burgundy, a neighborhood in the south of Montreal between the St. Lawrence River and the La Chine Canal. 2 streets away from my home is an annex of the Notre Dame Basilique, a beautiful church built in 1861 for all the new parishioners of the neighborhood. It has been recognized as a historical monument in 1911. When I arrived here, I went to bring clothes to give away, and the door of the presbytery was opened by a dear lady introducing herself as Sister Eva Rose Reo. She was very welcoming, and I told her my wife was ill, and she told me right away, please tell me what her address is, and I will pay her a visit today. And this is what she did. I was surprised to see, as a newcomer, to see this kind of welcoming. I then experienced magnificent years of love, of joy, of kindness, of compassion, of support, and of charity with Mr. l'Abbé Jacques Fournier and Sister Eva Rose, who administered the parish with devoted partners and faithful parishers. In the 1940s, Little Burgundy was a factory neighborhood, manufacturers, and it was known as the birthplace of jazz artists. In the 1970s, all the way up to the 1985, the old rail tracks were demolished and new social housing buildings were built. Social housing and modest homes and residences for the elderly. Big part of this neighborhood is multi-ethnic and we have different colors. The population is at risk and vulnerable with modest income. Lots of people living on social assistance. People are not very much educated and have many health problems. We have many single parent families as well. For the last few years, an important immigrant community left their old neighborhoods who were too expensive to come and live in Little Burgundy, where they think things might be more interesting. St. Joseph Church it was very welcoming. It had a great choir, a group from Latin America who was very active, and we organized many activities. We had many interesting and enriching gatherings and encounters after the Dominical Mass around a coffee and cookies, which is something we haven't had for a long time in a new parish. Two important dates were impatiently waited for by this community. The magnificent biannual bazaar, well prepared and directed by Sister Eva Rose with the different booths in which many volunteers could, could find a place to sell different objects that made the inhabitants of the neighborhood very happy in the basement of that church. So the inhabitants of the neighborhood were looking for good opportunities to buy goods. One of the most popular booths was the religious articles, religious items booth. It was supervised by Sister Marie-Paul Desvaux, who every year would leave her Fulham Street convent and to go on St. Joseph Street with 4 or 5 sisters, and with their smiles, their good moods, would offer them their beautiful items that they found in their homes. This booths with those sisters was always extremely successful. Sister Eva Rose was always very happy to encourage the clients to buy her diverse products. So lottery tickets that allow people to win different prizes presented on a beautiful table. To continue the work of Émilie Gamelin, we replaced the popular soup by an important food bank that would happen on a monthly basis, necessary for the most underprivileged of our neighborhood. affiliated to this organization, the Magasin Partage, the sharing store in Montreal. We prepared in December, we organized in December this day of Christmas shopping for groceries. We showed pictures at the beginning of today. This So it's a basement filled with different products that would welcome near 200 families who, for a very modest contribution, would receive groceries and hygiene products without forgetting the special room filled with toys for the kids. All the volunteers of different ages in our church were very proud and happy to contribute to this great moment with the community members. The basement of the church for many years was also used for children of the elementary school. So the kids from the neighboring school would come and have their lunch in the basement of the church. They only had to cross their backyard, the schoolyard, to arrive to the church. During these years, many charity organizations were created in Little Burgundy. I told you of what was happening in the 2000 or maybe a bit before. But we still have those new organizations now. So there's a groceries for all that prepare and distribute meals to the school children in the neighborhood. Meals on Wheels for the elderly or for lonely people to deliver food. Friendship Center that welcomes immigrant women and gives them sewing lessons, cooking lessons, and help them integrate into the neighborhood and in Montreal and Quebec. Youth associations, Black community of Little Burgundy, because at one moment in Little Burgundy there were a lot of street gangs and things were starting to go sour. So many initiatives were put into place to give activities, to give something to do to the teens so that they would do sports and study to avoid this participation in gangs. Adult education and many other organizations that were created. All these supports, we're talking different organizations that work with young girls and do science activities with them. So all those supports for the residents were created in the parish, and Sister Everose, who lived 2 streets away from the church, shared her wisdom, her knowledge, her inspiration with the parish members. But our church was unfortunately closed in 2004, which left a terrible void in our neighborhood and within the parish community in Little Burgundy. The church was transformed into a community building that now belongs to McGill University. Even after the closing of the church, all the charitable work, charity work is still ongoing in 2021. That's a great thing. and many other initiatives were launched over the last few years. Most of the projects are administered by young and well-educated women, women from the new generation. I would like to specify that amongst the former church members that started coming to church in the 2000s, we had amongst the associates Mr. Jacques Fortin, a great friend of Sister Eva Rose, who contributed greatly with his will, with the will and the support of Sister Thérèse Pigeon. So they contributed. They had installed the statue of Émilie Gamelin in front of the Berry UQAM metro, in front of the square that is in her name. We saw a picture earlier of that beautiful statue. The interpreter apologizes, the sound is very hard to hear. We also have Madame Nicole Ladouceur, who used to be a choir member, co-founder of the Christmas groceries for Little Burgundy. She is still an associate in our group. And Mr. René Lefebvre, co-author of our numerous annual pamphlets, still a Providence associate in this group. I would like to take this opportunity to ask if at the end of my testimony, that is almost over, if Mr. René could finish what he wanted to say, finish saying what he wanted to say at the beginning of the day, because he had technical issues, because he has very interesting things to say about our new parish, which is right besides the other. So maybe that can happen after my presentation. So to finish this presentation, I would like to say that more than 20 years ago, about 15 parish members from St. Joseph listened to Sister Eva Rose speak and decided to commit as Providence associates. And despite the fact that a few associates moved away, our group still has 7 founding members, and one of them is two of them are a couple from San Salvador, and we've also welcomed in the last years more than 8 new associates in our group. We were always very happy to meet before the pandemic. We had spiritual gatherings in the residence of the Sisters of Providence, and they would always welcome us very warmly. Our group kept its name in honor of Sister Eva Rose and of the church, who had a great influence on the members of the church in the neighborhood. May Blessed Émilie Gamelin and her sister care for us all. Thank you very much for listening to me. And I wish you a good end of convention for this international gathering. Thank you very much, Mr. Gérard. René, would you like to say a few words? If there's anything you would like to add? René, you're welcome to speak. Mr. Lefebvre? Thank you, Mr. Gérard. René, are you connected? Are you online? Is your microphone on? His microphone does not work. Okay, very well. I'm going to continue then. Lord God, Providence,
nous te rendons grâce.
we give thanks to you
Nous te rendons grâce pour ton amour
for your love
qui nous précède toujours sur
that is always with us on our
Nous te
journey.
rendons grâce
We
pour
give thanks
les associés
for all the associates, the Providence
qui ont
associates
témoigné aujourd'hui.
who have made presentations today, who have
Suite des
witnessed their commitment.
Nous avons vu
And in the footsteps of
cette
Emily,
femme
we saw this woman
providentielle
with providential heart,
dont les dimensions
with
sont
a heart,
incommensurable. Nous l'avons vu avec les
with a
enfants,
giant heart.
avec les
We
jeunes,
saw it with her
avec
work,
les
with the
avec les
young, with the
vieillards,
poor, with the
avec
elderly,
les personnes âgées délaissées,
with
avec les
abandoned
prisonniers,
people, with the
avec les
prisoners,
seuls.
with the lonely
Par la
people.
suite, nous
And
avons
after
entendu
that, we
les
heard
témoignages
the testimonies
de nos frères et
from
sœurs
our brothers and sisters in Haiti,
du Québec
from
et
Quebec,
des États-Unis,
and from the United States,
tout particulièrement avec
particularly
ces jeunes
with
avec qui
these
nous travaillons.
the young people with whom Nick works.
Nous te confions toutes ces
God, Providence,
initiatives,
we
ces
entrust you with all those projects
afin
and those commitments, and we ask you to
seul
multiply
sais
them
faire. Nous
as
confions
you
aussi
only can do. We
Madame
also entrust our projects with Emily Gamelin, Mother Bernard, and Mother Joseph, so that all the fruits be carried in all the dimensions of the world.
au nom du Père et du
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you, Sister Lucille. I would like to say that we still have 10 minutes. We were going to pause for lunch at 12:15, so we still have a bit of time. Are there reactions, comments, questions? Do people want to ask questions? We still have a bit of time before breaking for lunch.
Je sais pas, Hortense,
I'm not sure, Hortense.
si ça vaut la peine,
I'm not sure if it's worth it.
on pourrait avoir un petit échange
Do you think that we could have a short exchange in Teams? No, we did not organize subgroups, breakout rooms, but we could do this in plenary with everything that people have heard, the testimonies, the presentation, everything that was said since the beginning of the day. Would people like to react?
D'accord. Alors, l'invitation est lancée.
I have a
So
question.
the invitation is there.
I have a question. I would like to know if we can find people who want to contribute to the water thing in Haiti. How do we do that?
I think it would be possible if you wish to make a contribution to the project. If you would like, hold on. You can send the money to, we'll put it in the chat. It's the Fonds Le Partage, the Providence, the Provence Emily Gamelin, and we'll put the address. It's 12227 Grenay Street, Montreal, H4J 0A2. And it would be to the attention of Sister Claudette Leroux. Zero A2. The code is H4J 0A2. We'll put it in the chat and you can copy it there. And Sister Claudette Leroux is the treasurer of Emily Gamelin Province. And she will see that the funds get to Haiti.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been an amazing days. So thank you for everything, but thank you for that information.
D'autres commentaires ou questions? Irénée.
Other comments or questions?
There are many comments and some questions in the chat room that we will translate and answer and respond to after this day.
Yo Cecilia.
Sí, gracias.
Thank
Yo
you.
quiero agradecer
I want to thank
esta comunidad
this community, this precious community, this Emily. I want to thank all the sisters and brothers who have made presentations. It's helped us receive a teaching, a beautiful teaching, very motivating, very inspiring. It was a very precious moment of learning that went straight to our hearts and straight to our community's hearts. In my case, in Ovalle, Chile, and all the associates from Chile have written in the chat box what came to our minds listening to all the presentations, the beautiful work that you do. All the eyes are in the room, and we are receiving God's blessing right now. God's providence has enabled us with this pandemic that touches us all. We are still 143 people from so many different communities gathered here today, and this is a real blessing for us. It helps us grow. It helps us carry Mother Emily, Mother Joseph, and Mother Bernarda's missions in the whole world, just where God's providence sends us. Thank you very much.
There are even more than 142 people because some of the registrations have a group of people with them, as you can see in the pictures. So we have more than 150 people with us today.
Aló. ¿Se puede compartir? ¿Puedo?
Sí. Hello, can I share?
Yes.
Quiero felicitar
I want to congratulate all the participants for their participation in the last days, for having showed us intercultural differences for all of us, especially for those of you who are further away. So we're the furthest away, we're in Chile. I want to give thanks to God because once again, Emily has manifested herself with, she must be very happy watching us, listening to us. She, in the company of God Providence, watching over us so that we can offer to the world, the very complicated world that we live in right now, the beauty of providence. I think that the seeds that we are sowing today will bloom very soon, and we must continue working in the interest of providence. I think that Emily will be with us, and she will see what we are capable of doing, the Sisters of Providence and the Associates of Providence. So thank you, Sisters of Providence, for everything you've done and everything you're doing. Blessings.
I'm going to suggest that Renee and Sister Lucille and Sister Hortense and myself talk about the agenda for the afternoon, and then I can make announcements if we're going to be able to add some of the things we missed this morning. So we'll break for the lunchtime now for 30 minutes, and we'll welcome you back in 30 minutes. Thank you. And please put your session on mute and stay engaged. Thank you.
Alors, nous reviendrons à 12h45 et nous commençons par la vidéo sur les pas d'Émilie. Ensuite,
So we'll start with the video in the footsteps of Emily, and then we'll have a celebration of the world, the gospel, and a short reflection. And we will finish with a PowerPoint and a closing prayer. Thank you. Enjoy your lunch, everyone.